Hello and welcome to another Captain's Table. My name is Paul Berserker1 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of the Twitch, end of the universe. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. We got a good one for you. This is Captain's Table. This is a Captain's Table podcast. It's one of the oldest podcasts for Star Citizen. And we talk about Star Citizen content, community, lots of stuff. Bring people from all over the community to talk about the game. And today I've got two OGs, two very long-time supporters of both Star Citizen and of members here on the Captain's Table, Griffin and Access. Let's get started with introductions. I'll start with you, Griffin. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen, and where can they find you?
Hey everybody, I'm Griffin Gaming RPG. I've been in the Star Citizen community since 2013. I'm also one of the producers of the Soul Citizens. We are a live streaming team that comes on Sundays, Thursdays, and usually Saturdays. But today I felt the need to be here with Paul, so we didn't have a Saturday show. So that's what we do. We share information about the Star Citizen community, try to be as informative as possible, and glad to be here as always, Paul. It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. I managed to sneak on to the Soul Citizen a couple times, so this year. So
I think you have a challenger too. I want to say that Star Jump Grim is pushing up on your record. I think it's the ties between the two of you are the most who have been on. So you have to hold on, claim your fame, your name. There
Is this a subtle hint that you want me to come back on for one?
Just very subtle, very small.
I know there was one that I was going to be coming up on, but I think that ended up being like right in the middle of my vacation. So I was like, I can't make that one, but you know.
No problem.
And it's twitch.tv/Soul Citizens SOL, right?
That's correct. Yep. SOL. Yep.
And
it doesn't mean the other thing. It means soul. Okay. The sun or soul,
yeah,
but not S out of luck. Okay. Because
yes.
I've had people say that. We have literally rated somebody to say, oh, the S out of luck citizens. I'm like, oh God. No.
The soul system. Soul, the sun.
I'm sad for you, Griff.
I just say, okay, never mind.
Oh my.
All right. And next we've got Access 0096. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
Returning Captain's Table member, Access reporting for duty. I'm at the channel mentioned in up here. Hey, it actually works.
Yeah.
Access 0096 on Twitch, on YouTube. Well, on YouTube it's the uppercase. On Twitch it's lowercase.
Does lowercase matter on Twitch?
AO96 on Kick.
Okay.
And I think I just started on Rumble too.
Oh.
It's the same as this with an X at the end. So I'm everywhere now.
Awesome.
Made a bunch of new friends too, just by
streaming recently, right?
Yeah, I've been streaming a lot. My last couple of streams, I've basically been, talking about how this is the dry period, but people need to temper their
expectations. Yeah,
expectations a little bit.
I will make.
I'm trying to be negative.
Yeah, I will. I will be negative and tell all of you who are listening and watching this, if you have not gone outside and touched grass in the last year, now is the time to go out and touch grass. It is beautiful outside. I also am very biased though, because apparently everywhere else in the United States, it's so hot, and here in Texas, it's only 80. Like the high is 90. It's nice out. It's like a brisk summer. Like what's going on?
I get a dry heat and I love it outside.
Yeah.
Humid heat, no. Leave me alone. I'm staying inside.
But as I've always said, July is the month where a lot of people decide to go out and be social and go out to the beautiful weather outside and go visit family members. That's where I was last week, which is why I was doing this, and go on vacations and such. And so it's typically, and that is not reserved for just your average person. The developers do the same. So it seems like it's always a dry period in July because people are taking vacation. I was watching SCL and they had to change things around because one of the people who was supposed to be there was on vacation. So it's like, yeah, that's why we don't get a lot of information. Yeah, so enjoy your time in the sun for those of you who are here. The rest of us, we're going to talk about space stuff and nerd stuff because we're like that. For this session, for this Captain's Tables theme, we're talking about non-combat gameplay. How non-combat gameplay is today, how good or bad, the changes that CIG is going to be making or is making, and also things that they could improve upon or things that they should stay away from. Just that in general, because I've heard a lot of people discuss, even with the last Star Citizen, inside Star Citizen, they specifically talked about the blockade mission, the blockade event. They said, oh, so many things in Star Citizen are about guns. So we wanted to do something that wasn't focusing on violence. It's like right after you said you have to shoot a cargo ship and then take the stuff from the cargo ship. It's like, and all of the comments were in that video are the same. It's like, we were tired of having gameplay that was so focused on violence. So we did another gameplay loop focused on violence.
Yeah. Yeah, they missed that.
But it got me thinking about, like, non-combat gameplay. It's not the first time I've heard people in the Star Citizen community talk about that CIG should focus on stuff that isn't just fighters and guns. So I figured, having a good kind of conversation, let's start off with, what does CIG do now that's good in terms of non-combat stuff? And then we'll kind of go into the more problematic stuff. Axis, I'll start with you since you're the last one to introduce yourself. What are some of the good things that CIG does in terms of non-combat gameplay?
We have two semi-complete-ish paths of things based on professions. We have salvage and we have mining. A lot of people overlook them.
Do you think
mining and salvage?
Do you think they're good right now?
They could be better, but they're way better, I would say, than Congo is.
Okay.
That's my argument. But there's always room for improvement. Remember, these are just the 0.5 versions, not even the 1.0 versions of the professions. Like, what is it with salvage? For me, I already strip off the components out of the ship, load them into my cargo ship, then I scrape, and then I munch. See, I make it a 3-prong approach, and any useful cargo I take as well.
Okay, I think it's pretty typical, though. I know a lot of people don't like to go in and pull the components out. I like to do that just for practice. When I see a ship, I'm like, oh, I can sell this for something. And every so often I'll be like, hey, I can sell this for something. I get some more money.
I think they fixed the bug where you can sell the components finally, which adds to the more money you can make, which is good.
Okay. Griffin, same question for you. What are some of the good parts about non-combat? What are the things that CIG does right with non-combat gameplay?
Oh boy. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I would agree definitely that Star Citizen leans much more toward a combat PvE, PvP kind of dynamic in the way that it is now. And if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of say a little something that leads into this, because we had this conversation, a few of our folks in our community a few weeks ago, and I made a statement, and some people might disagree, but I feel like we know that we've heard the story about all of the citizens who voted and said that exploration is the biggest thing that they're interested in. And we know there are a lot of people who are interested in all of the other offerings that Star Citizen has said that they want to do, whether it's science exploration, mining, salvaging, trading, whatever the case may be. But there is this emphasis toward what we look at as PvE, PvP combat. And one of the questions I presented to people, or one of the observations I said, is that this might have been more of a business marketing decision more than a game player decision. And I know that can be frustrating because we want to see attention given to all these different things that sound very cool in the game. But I asked, would we have raised $700 million over a 12-year period for a salvage game
Yeah.
or an exploration game or an archaeological game? The business marketing side of me says that the PvE, PvP combat side is the way to bring in revenue. And I think one of the things I worry about is that because it's so heavily toward that, for people who may not know or understand the scope of the game, they may actually feel that that's what Star Citizen is. And so the idea of it moving more toward something where PvE and PvP are an element, but these other elements such as social dynamic, community, economics, trade, all that other stuff, as those start to rise up more and become more important in the game, that there may be people who will feel that the game is shifting or that it's changing. But that's because for many years, its emphasis has been in combat. And I'm not saying combat doesn't have a place. I think it does have a place, even with those other areas of gameplay. But now to get to your question, what do I think they've done well with is, even though people in the combat side may feel that there's a lot of stuff lacking because they're comparing it to Tarkov or whatever else they may be comparing it to, I would say in the combat side, the areas that Axis mentioned, such as mining, we feel like that's probably the most
Non-combat,
advanced. Non-combat, yeah, non-combat. Thank you. The mining is probably the most advanced that we've seen, and I look at it as that's their testing ground. Salvage has kind of come up behind that. Medicine probably has started to come up behind that. But there's still a lot of other areas that they have not touched on that they've talked to us about that they still need to build out on. And so once you start talking about these more esoteric things like science, archaeology, black market, all these other things, which still we have yet to see in any depth at all, I think that as those start to rise up, we'll start to see that combat will start to balance out maybe a little bit more, and we'll start to see how it all interconnects and it's not just emphasized on combat. To your point, and I'll say this last thing, one of my good buddies pointed out that when they showed us that first video about the distribution center, he's a trader, and he was so excited about this idea that you could be having this going over there and this going on over there. And there's maybe a combat going on this side of the distribution center, but over here, somebody's doing trading. But then he says that no matter what he does when he goes there, and this was the problem I had with Eve, because I wanted to get into trading and mining and all that other stuff, but you couldn't leave the station without combat was going to engage you at some point. Sometimes I just wanted to travel across the system, but I was going to fight my way to go look at the stars. You know what I mean? So I hope that CIG, and I think they will, they'll create those spaces where it's not like a PvP zone per se, but I think they will create spaces that allow for that, always that aspect of risk, but that there could be plenty of times where you go out in your ship and there's no engagement, you know. But right now, one system, it's tight. We're just going to feel it for right
now. Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the marketing thing, because it's been there's a I guess controversial video that was that mentioned me in it, that basically its emphasis was, are people buying Star Citizen because they're watching, you know, Avenger 1 doing PvP bounties, or are they buying Star Citizen to watch Paul do smuggling? And he's like, no one's buying Star Citizen to see Paul do smuggling. They're doing it because they're watching Avenger 1 doing PvP stuff. And it's from the perspective of PvPer. And I think you putting up a good point of, like, I think there's a lot of folks who are so keyed into Star Citizen being a PvE combat game that they forget that there are other aspects of the game, or they don't realize there's other aspects of the game. And so they see anything that is not PvE combat oriented as a threat to their gameplay loop, that they're not paying attention because it's not quite done yet. And they're like, why are they paying attention to X when they should be focusing on this? Oh gosh, what was I going to say? Oh, and yeah, but I think there is a bit of a marketing problem for that one. And I think with 3.24 going forward, CIG probably has to kind of start leaning more into the not so sexy, you know, less, you know, boom, 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 like trailer music with people running and people gunning, like, you know, the Call of Duty effect, you know, gameplay sort of trailers. And because it's one of those things that I got to point out, but farming sim is one of the most popular games on the planet. and people lost their mind because you could grow rice in the latest update. Like that was a frontline news, sort of gaming news, that farming sim allowed you to grow rice. And
That's funny.
and so it's like, yes, do combat and all that stuff. It's sexy. Is it going to get a lot of attention? Yeah. But they're the people like doing stuff that seems menial, like, Euro Truck Simulator and your American Truck Simulator are very popular, very successful. Yep. You said like Salvage is a great example. Is there's what was that game? Hard Space Shipbreaker, another very popular game made by the people who did Homeworld.
Yeah.
And that's a standalone game that did this. So like, there's definitely a market for it. I think CIG just needs to learn to ease off the drum and bass and start adding a little bit more of whimsical flute in their marketing.
Another thing you're missing, and literally just keyed in on it, is construction. Because with the upcoming base building, I'm not saying anytime soon, understand, probably within 18 months at the minimum. We could be talking about another profession being added, and y'all know Tomato, Space Tomato.
Yeah.
He wants to go out there and open up an org, do some things like building stuff for people and stuff. I'm pretty sure there are other people that want to build stuff as well, like be construction magnates and stuff. And it makes sense, that's non-combat. Oops, it looks like it's my mic, my camera is doing something funny.
Feel good.
But yeah, we have but with that in mind, we have that being worked on. We also have, somebody mentioned it, hacking, but that's technically espionage, so
yeah,
gray area. What else am I forgetting, Griffin? There's a couple of other things in the background.
Let's go to the we said what we're doing right, but like, and we kind of, Griffin, you sort of touched on this as well about like what they were doing wrong. Is there anything specifically that you can point out to, like, that beyond what you've discussed about like what CIG is kind of falling down on when it comes to non-combat gameplay?
Yeah. Again, I don't think that they're doing anything wrong. I think that there are parts of me that make me feel like time is what's making things feel rough. The careers, for example, sometimes CIG will introduce, well, here's something that I think that God, it's so weird. They'll introduce something and tell us about it. And I want to say, in the sense of, this is what how can I say this? We did a topic one time called Visions, Dreams, and Reality.
I was on that show.
You remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about Chris's vision, right? Chris's vision. And that got us all licking our chops, right? And then there's this period of time between reality where we start to dream. And every one of us brings our dreams to what we want Star Citizen to be. Those dreams could be affected from whether you watch Star Trek, Star Wars, Starship Troopers, The Expanse, whatever. And we start making up our own version of what Star Citizen is going to be, right? And then the reality comes. And the question will be, is that reality closer to Chris's reality, or maybe the reality that we want the game to be? When you ask what are the things that they could do better, they may introduce something. Like, okay, here's an example. Remember when they did that show and they made the little campsite with the bed and all that other stuff and whatnot? It got people kind of pumped up, like, oh, that's going to be cool, blah, 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 blah. How long ago was that? When we saw the little med bag with the medicines in it and stuff, the little case and everything, when we saw that for medical people, when have we seen that? There's these things that they'll introduce and show us. And I get it. Some of it is to let us know this is the direction we're going. But then there's also that feeling of us wanting to get it in our hands. The recent RSI beacon marker that they gave us, the little light thing, right? But we got the vehicle, but what do we do with it? It's like, and maybe if there's some explanation that comes along or talks about it or says, hey, we haven't forgotten about it, that would make us feel good, or it's still in development, or it's going to come out after this. But they show us something, get us to lick our chops, and then it just falls by the wayside. But then later on, we get to hear about ship balancing and weapons, and here's a new gun, and here's a new pistol. And it's like, well, what happened to the other stuff you guys talked about? I think that that's the feeling for the non-combatant player that, we'd like to get those great updates too. We'd also like to get those items that make what little we have feel like it's moving forward and not just still in the vision mode.
Okay. Yeah, I that's a good way of putting it. It's not necessarily like a dev thing that they're doing wrong. It's more of like communication and making sure that the people who aren't first person shooters who aren't Starkov players or DCS and space players who are getting like feel like we're our gameplay is being worked on or being at least updated on.
Yeah.
More like the communication.
Can I give you a quick example?
Sure.
What's the restaurant, the fine dining restaurant, down at Microtech?
I can't remember the name of that thing.
Not
what's
Wally's.
It called,
guys?
Not Wally's.
No. It says fine cuisine. Jesus, I can't
remember the name of it either.
What's the name of that joint, guys? Come on, you guys in chat.
It's Smile High Club related.
No.
There's a different one.
It's got the hard wood in the front and the glass entry and all that stuff. Right. Okay. So you run past that place for 3 years, right? And you finally go out to the landing platforms to do Siege of Orison, and it's open. It's a really nice restaurant, right? But it's open so that you can go do combat in it.
Yeah.
It's like Oza. Thank you,
Oza,
20. Yeah. Oza. Yeah. It finally opens up, and it's only so that you can go in there and shoot people. It's like, you could open that freaking restaurant up. You know what I mean? It's just little things like that still end up being combat is still the reason why we saw it, not because it's a restaurant that you could go in, not Leroy's.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It's called specifically. I looked it up. It's called Oza Neo Imperial Cuisine.
Yes.
And the other thing, which is to add to this, which is I realized there's another one that's called Thaw, which is a luxury spa that's closed. And I along with that whole thing, it's like I can't wait to see Thaw come out in some sort of combat gameplay edition for. We're going to see a spa that's going to be used for me to kill Ninetales again. And
when you get shot, you have to go there to heal up and feel better. That's why you have to have that.
They're going to replace some of those gyms in Siege of Orison for a Thaw, so you can get to the med bed there, so you can heal up.
Exactly. Well, what's the company that we do our characterization for? What's it called?
Bioticorp.
Bioticorp. There's a facility in there. I mean, why can't we have a place there that's where we go? I mean, non-combat, but it's a part of the gameplay that we already have. Let's just bring it into game beyond just the opening screen, modifications, things like that. The clothing store in Microtech that I like going to, the really nice clothing store, still has no kiosk. After all these years, it's the one store that you cannot buy things from a kiosk. It's like you guys are leaving out. You introduce these things, bits and pieces of them, but just give us a little bit that we can do with them.
Okay.
Access.
I got something to add to that, Griffin. You're going to love this. My gripe is when they do a trade or a path, for advancement in a trade, huge holes in the ships or vehicles that are non-existent. Y'all know where I'm going. Okay. We have the Vulture and the Reclaimer for salvage. You either have freaking huge and can't land in most places, and you need a lot of crew and probably cover support, again, combat to protect your ship. Or we have the Vulture, which is very weak. Technically 2-man ship, but you still need a cargo ship, and it has pitiful buffer. My argument is when you start getting to the point when these ships were concepts, right? Salvage was a pipe dream. It wasn't out. There was no need for a medium or a large between the capital and the small. Now there is a need because some people just want to roll with 2 or 3 people. They don't want to roll with dozens of ships, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a medium salvage ship, I've been seeing it for a long time.
I mean, that was what I was going to say. So like the thing that I think that CIG is really falling down on is because at the end of the day, Star Citizen is a ship game. It's a game with ships. It's your main ships are the main like vehicle upon which gameplay is going to work. And because of that, all you have to do is take a look at the ship list, and there are 2 mining vessels released, a total of 4 that are been discussed. With the Arastra and the Orion.
Spectre, Mole,
Orion. That's it. 4. And there are only 2 salvage vehicles, which are both out, the Vulture and the Reclaimer. Nothing else as far as I know. Medical has a little bit more variety, but it's the Nursa, the Pisces, medical, the Cutlass Red, the Apollo, and the Hope. And that's it.
Right.
There's only 5 dedicated medical ships, 4 dedicated mining ships, 2 salvage ships.
Yep.
But out of they said it's like 150, 160 ships, probably close to 200 when it comes to all of the ships that are in like concept. No, it's probably more like 170 because there's not a lot of ships in concept. I guess the Rock and the Rock DS, as people point out, for mining. So it's 3, technically 4 mining vehicles.
Ghost brings up the Galaxy and Pioneer for construction. We also need to bring up whatever that thing is in the concept art for Tiny, the small thing, the little Scout.
Oh, yeah.
And the Atlas platform variant.
Yeah, the MCV.
No name.
Well, it's everyone's calling it the MCV, but it's because of the leak in the files and stuff. But yeah, no, but the problem is that like at most there's like 20 ships that are specifically dedicated to non-combat. There are some other ships which are hauling ships, but it's like the whole series and the Caterpillar and the Hercules. There's like maybe 10 dedicated haulers. The rest of them are hybrid ships, or have variants that are combat oriented. Like there's the Cutlass Black, the Cutlass Blue, all of the Freelancer variants, including the Cutlass Miss, which is the Freelancer Miss, all the Freelancer variants, plus the Freelancer Miss, which is itself a combat variant. So if you just look at the ships, which is what CIG's main kind of revenue comes from, and it is also the main thing that they really like use to promote the game and try to like promote gameplay. The vast majority are combat or combat adjacent. Only maybe 30 of those ships are non-combat. I mean, like, how many light fighters do you need? There's like 6. There are more light fighters in the game than there are salvage or mining vehicles.
Yeah.
Light fighters have insane representation. Like there are more medium fighters, I think, now than there are mining vehicles. It's like the just the category of fighter is so big in Star Citizen. I know some of that is because of Squadron 42 and other reasons, but at a certain point, I think CIG needs to start to kind of go, okay, well, maybe we should start making vehicles for the gameplay that's not just shooting people. I think that would be the thing I think CIG is probably falling down the most on, but that comes along with your idea, Griffin. But I think it's a lot of it is just there's no visibility of the progress that's being made on the side that's not just shoot somebody else. So and as goes,
and there's a part of me that also makes me feel, and please, combat people, do not be offended when I say this.
Yeah,
making the combat part is easy. Determining what space means, or what science means in this game, or what touring means in this game, or I mean, those are things that we're venturing into other areas that you don't see really pushed in other areas of gaming. And what I mean by easy, I'm saying it's been done. And so, as far as being able to provide that instant game activity that people are familiar with and can step into and understand, for Star Citizen to build out on that, I get it. I wish that other aspects of gaming were just as prevalent, but they're not in a lot of games today. And so Again, could you have raised $700 million saying I'm making a mining game? I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe, but I don't know. I think that they had to go that route, and that becomes the means. And we all can participate. I hate to say it. There's little propaganda out there, as far as I'm concerned, that space is dangerous. Space is dangerous because of y'all, not because. I mean, space is dangerous for other reasons, like radiation and
Yeah.
temperatures. We never talk about space being dangerous from that aspect. It's always from the human side, right?
Mhm.
And you can ride on that and make money off of that, right? Until we went to Pyro and people got hit by that burst off of Pyro Star. Then people saw danger come from another area, right?
Mhm.
Once you start introducing radiation and having to use that, what's it called? What's that pin called that we have now that nobody thought about?
Yeah, the
The
decon pin, I
the
think.
decon
Oh,
pin
Yeah.
that introduces another level of gameplay. So now instead of the red pin being about bleeding because I got shot, the red pin is now about because like radiation got to me. I mean,
Mhm.
they've got to start introducing that other stuff to start balancing the game out more.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Now that we've kind of thoroughly talked about some of the problems, and we kind of just brought in some of the solutions. What are some of the things you'd like to see going forward in terms of how CIG might be able to start maybe encouraging or improving the experience of non-combat gameplay? Like what is something that you think that would be, I say simple, nothing in life is simple, but like something that they could do in, say, the next year to make people who participate in non-combat gameplay feel like they're being paid attention to. Access, I'll start with that.
Well, for mining, remember, we only have a select number of minerals at the moment. For hand mining, we have like 3. Headnite, no, 4.
4. It's a new one, yeah. Yeah.
We have 4. We have the golden mystery element, Jalanite. We have Dolomite, Headnite, and I forget the 4th. Maybe chat knows. It's the purple one, purple blue one, purple blue hand mineable. What is it?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's
Aphorite. There it is.
Yeah.
Aphorite.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks, guys. But yeah, there's only 4 hand minables for people just starting out, seeing a starter ship. Don't want to dive into spending $150 for a prospector, or
Yeah.
they just want to get out there, get a hand tool, carve up some headnite or whatever, and leave. It would be nice to add some more variety to the ore deposits.
Okay.
And then when the bigger ships, this is just for mining in particular, add more to the mineral pool, because you're going to have to, because it relates to another career, which is when you make stuff, crafting and stuff, you're going to have to add materials to craft things. An iron frame, or what's an item we don't have right now? Silver. Silver we don't have on the table. Uranium we don't have. I'm talking about things that are actually practically used.
Yeah. Apparently silicon is in, but I haven't seen.
Silicon is really.
I haven't seen it, so
that would be
I would
used
trust
for,
them.
Computer chips or something.
Yeah.
Uranium, obviously, for simple power sources. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of these non-combats kind of intermesh. That's my concern, Griff, is that they're going to let the web get too weighted down by clutter and not get it netted together at the right time.
Okay. So what you're saying is things like the economy connects with the commodities, and those commodities are connected to mining, because you get a lot of those commodities from mining, which is connected to refining, which is you need to refine those materials so you can build things, so you can use those buildings. And then whenever you are getting RMC or construction materials from breaking down a ship, those construction materials in RMC will eventually be based off of what the composite of the materials of the ship that you broke down was in the first place. So it's like all of this stuff is connected because of this web of economic activity, which doesn't have anything to do with combat, and it all has to do with like the like building on top of each other. Okay.
Someone did mention it, that the weapon ISC hinted crafting might be being modeled in the background. And I agree. You saw the handgun that looked like a mini machine. This, well,
Yeah.
it's made with components from bits and bobs and pieces. So where did that come from?
Yeah.
Did you buy it somewhere? Obviously not. You scrap hardwired and built shit. Pardon my language. But trying to, tone it a little bit. But
Mhm.
you have to be able to have parts to build something like that. And they also mentioned it about the voltage weapon.
Yeah, the volt
That you
weapon.
can upgrade and stuff. That's another thing. Upgrading that's not weapon related. It is weapon related, but it's non-combat. Being a weapon merchant, you
Mhm.
upgrade things,
For other
sell
people.
it in a shop, and then make a profit.
Yeah.
And that is the start of a civilian economy. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent.
Yeah, you're not really. What you're saying is like improve the number of minables, like drastically expand the mineable, like what you can acquire through minables
Minables and harvestables
and
too. Yeah.
harvestables, and then also add weapon crafting. You're saying like those two things would go a long way to improving like that sort of experience for non-combat.
Right. Gear crafting, weapon crafting, all that's going to be interrelated, and it's going to happen so fast.
Okay.
We've already seen the pockets on the armor of the dusters.
Yeah.
That shows they're starting to think about the slots things
Mhm.
that were mentioned years ago, Griffin. Remember that? The
Mm-hmm.
slot discussions?
Yep.
And again, I'm going to stop talking now because
You're good. Griff, your thoughts on like what CSG could do in the short term to improve that sort of the feel of non-combat.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if this is short term. God, I wish I could say it. In the short term, I would love for them to start activating things that have been placeholders for a while.
Yeah.
For example, many of us were drawn in by the original Constellation video with the Aquila, coming in, and it's got the scanning array at the top and the turret up there. But there's no scanning station. There's nothing for someone to do. Just something as simple as that. Some ships, for example, have areas for storing food products and items like that. There would be people who would dig going in and setting up their ship and getting it ready to be lived in so that when their friends come on, they could do stuff. That's combatant and non-combatant.
Mhm.
They started implementing it, and the Pisces has it, the Redeemer has it, your favorite ship, of course.
Yes.
But they haven't, I've got a nice 600i with a bar and everything and can't use it,
Mhm.
There are these just little areas within what they have given us that I wish they would activate. I wish closets worked, for example. On my 300i, when I go on it, I actually do open the closet and I put my clothes and flight suits in there. And to your point, you mentioned this earlier, Paul, about building the discipline of doing these things now so that when the game does come into its fruition, we've gotten used to it. It doesn't shock us about doing inventory and using drawers and all these
Mhm.
spaces. So there are elements that the ship is there, and these things that we've looked at for years as placeholders that I wish they would start to activate a little bit more. They've done it with engineering a little bit. They've started to move us in that direction, but I still have a lot of questions about engineering. I think they mentioned it on one of the shows recently that the larger ships will be the ones that really have to worry about all the connections and lines and all the other stuff. But I do want to know about, what does it mean? Can I replace my components on my C2? Does my C2 need to go to Crusader shipyards? Does it need to go to a Cousin Crow's in order to swap out that quantum drive? I can see swapping it out on a size 1 or a size 2, but when I get to a size 3, there's a lot of information that's outside of combat, which is general operations in the game, that I wish we had a little bit more clarity on. But for the non-combatant areas like medical, I would love to see something step up for that, because there are a lot of people out there that would love to do that. I know that they seem like they started moving toward it with the NERSA. This idea of how that, because people went crazy about the whole multiple respawning thing, but I still
Mhm.
think there are going to be, and they've said it, tied into Death of a Spaceman. There are going to be limitations and restrictions to that make us have to decide: is it best for me to respawn, or is it best for me for someone to try and get me and deliver me back to the hospital? That's not there yet, but we know it's coming.
Mhm.
And so I think that things like that. The thing that concerns me a little bit for both non-combatant players or combatant players now, and maybe I'm wrong, is this issue about people talking about the time sink.
Mhm.
And Star Citizen has always been in some way about a time sink. And there's a group of people who don't realize that CIG will adjust times. For those of us who were around back in the day when we first got Hurston,
Mhm.
it used to be a 15-minute ride from Port Olisar. When we
Right.
first got trams used to be 5 minutes real time, like
Yeah.
real time.
You'd have to wait for them. It was
Yeah,
so insane.
yeah. Pyro was 14 AU. It's now 9.5.
Yeah.
They'll adjust those things to make sure that realism pulls back to what's playable and fun.
Mhm.
And even time. I still hear people say stuff like, "What will you do for 20 minutes riding on your ship?" In my head, I've got a million things in my head. There are players who they're so wanting to get into the thing
Mhm.
that they don't know that there are other things that are non-combatant related that CIG is going to want you to do, whether it's cleaning your weapons, whether it's tuning your ship, whether it's planning for what you're going to do. I've been on
Mhm.
ships for 10, 15 minutes or 10 minutes roughly, and time flies by like that, and we're coming out of quantum. So anyway, there's just things that I think that they could implement with what they have already that will make non-combatant gameplay kind of liven up a little bit for us.
Okay. Yeah, I think the simplest answer I could make is the stuff that they plan to come in 4.0 will go a long way.
Yes.
Because for those of you who don't know what the 4.0 roadmap is, it's I always say don't necessarily trust the roadmap, but every time I say that, Jake pops out of the corner somewhere and goes, "We've only missed 6 targets since I've been doing this. Goodbye." And it wasn't like they missed 6 targets that wandered off the roadmap. It was 6 targets that got pushed to the next one.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no matter what metric you use, it's gotten incredibly better. Like everything's gotten incredibly better since Jake has taken over the roadmap station. So thank you, Jake. As Jake, of course, is we all know Jake. I think Jake's been on Soul Citizens multiple times too, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Been a community member long before they became a community manager, and they have that frustration. They understood that frustration. But still, like if you look at that list, it's about half of that list is pyro related and jump point related, and the other half is all just engineering and life support. It's all so. Like it's engineering and life support, and then pyro, jump points, and server meshing. Those are the things that we're getting in. And once they start adding in things like having to manage your atmosphere, decompressing and recompressing ships, dealing with repairs,
fire suppression, all that stuff is coming in. Yeah,
it's going to start making. It's going to start making a lot of more of that non-combat stuff, like. I think even combat people will start realizing it's like, yeah, I need a non-combat person on my like larger ships just because I need someone to repair my ship so I don't explode in the middle of combat. Yeah. Or, I needed someone to look over my stuff because I don't want to have to like check my engine every single time to see what its status is. And it adds some time, like it adds some like, oh yeah, time sync, as you were saying, but those time syncs are designed for other players or NPCs to fill in those times. Like, oh, this is the time for that person to go tune the engine or to build finish tuning up a weapon so that they can get it to the person. Or my distant hopium dreams of, the person who's your chef who's cooking up a nice meal so that you don't lose stamina as fast when you go out on your mission and stuff like that.
Right. And it doesn't mean that the non-combatant isn't with you. Because sometimes I think we say non-combatant, we think that they have nothing to do with combat. You could have the non-combatant who's in your Ursa, or the little Pisces, right? Who is maybe not great in FPS. That's not what they're into, right? Or the Cuddy Red, but they're the persons that will drop you down outside the location and go up into orbit and wait for you until you say, "Griff, we need you down in 5 minutes." You know what I mean? That's what they do. or that engineer, like you said, who's working on your ship after a battle. When you guys have gone to the hospital, that person's on the ship getting it ready so you can go back out, right?
Yeah.
Or if it's just a cargo run, I mean, there's so many things that non-combatants can still be a part of in a PvE, PvP space, right? But they don't necessarily have to be those in the forefront of what we would consider FPS or direct combat with
Yeah.
other people.
It's I've called Star Citizen a logistics game for forever because of that.
Yeah.
It's like if you can go out there and be the Top Gun ace pilot, but there's plenty of people out there who will be there to patch your ship up after you get banged up or replace your parts. And as I always like to say, as I quoted this in my last lore video, that a lot of people say I misquoted it, but it's just one of those quotes that come, like, there's so many versions of it, it floats around. But there's a famous quote from General Omar Bradley who said, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. And that's kind of the way of putting things. It's like, in theory, all non-combat like professions are combat professions. They're just support professions. So, So for those of you who are angry, who are PvPers or PvEers who are in my comments being mad about us talking about this, just think about this. We're talking about the stuff that's the people who want to be hanging out with you, that you want to hang out with your friend, but they're not so good at Tarkov, but they really enjoy a spreadsheet. So get them. But all right.
Let me say something too. I'm reading something that New Ledge Lambo says. When do these dreams of gameplay and big mechanics start getting realized? Some of these core elements have been talked about for years, and that's exactly why we're having this conversation now. Because even though there are many people who are combatants who feel like CIG has not delivered in their area in years, believe me, the non-combatants have gotten much less.
Yes.
They've gotten much less, and they've waited even longer. I know people who've been wanting to get into their endeavor and be able to grow items, or people who want to do farming. There's none of that in the game. And the combatants have gotten most of the attention. I'm sorry, guys, I'm one of the combatants too, but let's face it, the energy has gone into that area. But people who've stepped into this game for other areas have gotten absolutely nothing in some areas, and they've waited. So believe you me, those visions and dreams you're talking about are just as important to them. And that's why we're having this show today, to raise the element of saying there's other aspects of this game that we would like to see.
And hopefully CIG starts addressing those as to what's going on with them, and to help, maybe CIG see, start a discussion in the community about CIG starting to see that non-combat isn't a threat to their bottom line or whatever, or many of the other things that whatever issues that might be happening about how many people are looking for this, These are all great ideas, and knowledge is right. We don't know when these are coming out. These things have been talked about for years. So starting with having some of those things take priority would be nice. So
I tell you this much, Paul, we'll see the Javelin, the Idris, the Perseus, the Polaris before we'll see the Endeavor.
100%. We know that's the case. We know that's the case.
All combatant caps. We'll see all of those ships before we see the non-combatant final ship come out.
I mean, we might even see some of those before the Orion shows up.
Yeah.
Because, the Orion is for a gameplay loop that exists in game right now.
Yep. Yep, that's true.
So, well, I think that's going to enter our main discussion point. We're going to move into questions and answers, but I'm going to be doing an experiment. For the first time in about a year, I'm going to take this segment and I'm going to clip it out and I'm going to put it up as its standalone video away from the VOD and see how it does. Because I've been just leaving the VOD up and seeing how it does in the past. And it's been doing okay, but I want to try to experiment a little bit more with more, actual video uploads. So for those of you who are watching that segment, I'll leave a link above Griff's head to the full VOD so you can watch the question and answers. But I found that people find it a little bit more palatable to do a 45-minute video is a lot more palatable than a 2 hour and 45-minute video. So make sure you check that out up there, and for that, and let me know in the comments below any of the topics we've talked about here. How do you think CIG has done non-combat? How do you think they can improve? What are some things you'd hope to see? Of course, make sure you check out Griffin at Soul Citizens on Twitch and YouTube, Axis0096 on Twitch and YouTube. And we mentioned Jake earlier. Jake is also a streamer. Jake is streaming, actually right now, they stream Kingdom Hearts on Saturdays. So they do a lot of stuff like this. So go check them out as well. And he's like, yeah, he's live right now. So for everybody else, we're going to take a 5-minute break and we'll be right back. And for those of you who are watching us in the recording, make sure to check us out at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, and it's like noon. Yeah, no, 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm trying to do the time zones in my head. It's kind of a newer time. So
yeah.
Thank you for watching, and like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. All right. So we're still live, though we're not going anywhere. I'm just we're just transitioning chat. We'll take a few minutes to use the restroom and we'll come back for your questions and answers. So. We're back with the question and answer session with Griffin and Axis 0096. Griffin Gaming RPG from Soul Citizens. This is a question and answer session. So let's get started with some questions.
How many do we have, if you don't mind me asking?
We have 4.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So if you want to ask more questions, you can use the little coin icon on Twitch, and just make sure you bracket your questions with questions on YouTube. I don't see any that I could find necessarily on YouTube. It's usually a little bit lower participation there, but yeah, feel free to ask that. So the first one coming in is from Northern Trooper, who asks, if you had 5 minutes with Brian Chambers or Tony Z or anyone at that level, what would you pitch to them to enhance or prioritize a non-combat game loop? Anyone want to jump on that first?
Go ahead, Griff.
I can jump on it. I got an answer.
Oh, go ahead. You go first.
Okay.
Yeah, you first.
My pitch would be a mission, like a event mission. What do they call them? The dynamic missions, where it's a disaster relief mission.
Okay.
And it's twofold. The first part is gathering the resources that's needed.
Mhm.
Second part is bringing those resources from the drop-off point to the location of a disaster. And the third is distributing those resources to where they need to be, and medical gameplay, where you have to triage various injuries and figure out who needs to get what. And your goal is to get everybody in an area healed up. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Mine was very close to yours. That's scary. I was trying to think of something that incorporated a variety of different ships.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I would have wanted was a delivery using something like a Hull C,
Mhm.
bringing something to an orbital, a LEO, over a planet. And then from there are missions that go from there to distribute to the various planets or moons, I should say, around the area. So you may have to bring the main stuff with a Hull C that brings those type of players, the large freight train. But then you get the semi trucks, right, that start
Mhm.
to distribute down to the smaller locations. And that could be even things such as bringing a Starfare in to deliver fuel or water, anything like that. But something that has to be multiple size different ships.
Mhm.
And I'm saying that in light of the new update we're getting in 324, where landing bases now only carry up to 120 SCU. So we don't get big C2s coming down there landing, but we may get Connies, or we may get other ships, that can accommodate those type of facilities, and even distribution centers, being able to utilize those in some form. But something that is system wide. And I love your idea, though, like an emergency that happens. Something
Mhm.
happens at Hurston where stuff's got to get delivered there. I love the fact that it's
Yeah.
something like that, a scenario like that.
And you just have it as a timer. Like you've got 36 hours. This
Yep.
has happened.
Yep.
You have 36 hours. Once
Yep.
36 hours is over with,
Yep.
it's over, and you'll find out like how many people you rescued, all that kind of stuff. And depending on how many people you rescued, depending on your participation, will determine your reputation. So
Yeah, they can do that based upon. Didn't we have those old missions? Remember, with the stuff we had to deliver computer parts and all types of weird stuff. I mean, that was kind of like the testing ground for something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Axis, any ideas? If you could pitch.
Someone brought up something. I think it was God, what was it? Who was it? Oh, gaming. One of your guys, Griffin, CO33 Gaming. Any type
Coffee
of
Gaming.
mission giver. Oh, wait, that's another question. Sorry.
Okay.
Never mind. But along that, if I could get some alone time with someone, I'd like them to like fill in the holes of some of these pre-existing career paths we already have. Yeah.
Okay.
Salvage is still in a very base state. Mining is still kind of rough. And what do you do? What happens with those commodities after you refine them?
Mhm.
They just don't go poof into new products. Why not a forge? Some sort of forging where you forge it into, if it's metal, some sort of alloy or
That's kind of
something.
we kind of have
you
that
know,
with the refinery.
Mhm.
But you're talking about like more like a factory. Like you take the raw
Yeah.
materials that are refined and then you take it to like a factory to get made
into
into
simple
things.
goods, I guess is what it is. Has
Yeah.
anyone played Satisfactory? More
Yes.
along those lines, where you sell components to manufacturers, like Herstein Dynamics wants ignition coils for guns, and
Yeah.
they
Mhm.
send out an order for you to get them.
Yeah.
And you have to go collect everything.
Mhm.
They pay out within a certain time, within the time frame they're setting,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
Heath Miller asks a question on YouTube. What kind of non-combat jobs could you see being added to the game that wouldn't need a ship that could be done in a landing zone?
Oh my God.
I know the answer. There's an answer that we actually used to have. If you remember this from back when Lorville was the only landing zone,
Mm-hmm.
delivery. You could literally pick up a box. There's a mission where you could pick up a box at Central Business District and take it to one of the very
other ones.
very other ones. You could just take a train. So it was just pick up a box, take a train all the way out to like one of the outer gates. When that trip took 15 minutes and you had to wait 5 minutes per per train, so it could take you up to 20 minutes to do it, but you didn't need anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
We have something similar with the prison mission where you go in and you have to repair oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
There could be easily repair jobs that are done at a station where you just have to go to check in at a certain location, the admin or TDD or whatever, and then you go repair it and you make some money. And I think that those type of missions are going to be important later for when you need to get some base funding for some reason. I know people dismiss that because we're so used to making $1 million in 1 hour.
Yeah,
but
that's going to go
simple
down.
missions, yeah, it's going to change dramatically. It's going to hurt people's feelings, I think, a little bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, there could be just simple missions like that you can do just to make some money as a pastime. There's also those things of when people, which some people do now, when you get items from what do you call it? If you do a bunker, when you do something, you have all these guns and armor and stuff. There's the whole aspect of selling this stuff back.
Looting.
Things like that. Looting. Thank you. Just from simple looting, you can trade and do things like that. I'm hoping that they can start integrating, and I don't know when we're going to see this, Paul, the trading between players. Being able to sell something that I have that you may want that I don't use. Maybe there's certain guns I just don't use. And you're crazy about the P6 and I don't use the P6. And you tell me, anybody got a P6? Yeah, dude, here, let's meet up at the bar. Let's meet up at, M&V and I'll sell you what I got. I'd love to see stuff like that happen too.
Right.
Yeah.
Along those lines. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I was just going to say that, I've lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Axis.
Along with that, Griff, I could see boomerang type jobs where you're asked to repair something by a corporation in a city. Say Herstein Dynamics is their air conditioner go out or something in the office, and you're giving clearance to go in there, repair the ducts with a little hand tool, and stuff. And this is a lot of gameplay come together, like soldering type stuff. You're given like some solder to wire some fuses together, and there's all kinds of things they can come up with. I mean, welcome to Walmart.
Yeah.
Door greeter. I know there's going to be a lot of NPC type stuff.
Yeah.
But there's also going to be a lot of in the city hub type stuff, like maybe even to the suburb type delivery stuff, like UPS. Someone brought that up, and
and I remember what it was. Griffin, you said player trading. That was literally in the last monthly report.
I missed it then.
Yeah, the last monthly report, they said they started working on player trading.
Good.
So it was the first time we mentioned.
Tool?
We don't know. It was just saying it was saying like they started work on like initial look at player trading amongst other things. That there was like it was a mention of like it was in a sentence that had a few other things, but player trading was mentioned. It's like, oh, okay,
good.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next question, which is from Northern Trooper, who asks, it's been a hot summer so far for a lot of us. What do you guys do to cool off during the summer? I stay inside with the air conditioning.
I hate to say that. Yeah, it's in my mind. Don't go outside. That's what it is.
Right now, I have a fan about 2 feet from me blowing full blast.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's some classics you can like. You know, I live in Austin, so there's a couple of swimming holes in the Austin city limits that are pretty famous, where you can go out and swim. Get yourself some. You can freeze the great. One of the good things about that I've learned from my wife is that pretty much anything that is juice can probably be frozen and can probably be turned into a frozen treat. Yes. So, like at anything that is juice form, very few things will not be able to be frozen. My wife is partial to pickle pops, so you know that's a popular one. So, but you can do it for like lemonade, like, you know, make lemonade, pour it into some of those little popsicle maker, you know, small plastic things, and put it in your freezer, and you got yourself a lemonade pop. So
do something from the ancient days. Go to a nice theater. Yeah. Just chill out and watch a movie. Get some popcorn, and you may have to deal with the heat going outside, but once you get inside and you feel that air conditioning, get you one of those ones where the seats go out and you can relax and just chill out for a little bit and do some old school big screen, you know, movie watching.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That's always a good one. I remember being super hot, going to the theater and be like, oh, it's super nice in here.
Oh my God. There was a theater in my town that unfortunately closed down a few years back. But one of the last movies I watched in it was a dog ugly hot summer. It was like 110 without humidity outside.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
And step inside, it's like a wall of just iceberg cold air, just boom, you in the face. You're like, oh, I'm not leaving till dark. Oh my God. The thermostat, I could see it on the wall. It said 68 degrees. I'm like, yep, not leaving.
Yeah.
I think I watched Captain America and the Winter Soldier, maybe. That's
a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, this theater closed up maybe, I would say 2 years after. Thank goodness we still have a theater here, but that conditioner has gone out a few times, so yeah.
All right. Northern Trooper also asks, until we get the non-combat game includes into PU, what are some good space game suggestions that can scratch that itch for this summer? I mean, Axis mentioned one of them already, Satisfactory, which is a great space game for that sort of building construction sort of thing. We also mentioned Hard Space Shipbreaker. It's another good one.
Yeah,
I always like that one.
Shipbreaker's good. Shipbreaker's good if you're into that. For those of you who might play Icarus, that's been an interesting one too, especially if you're into the whole crafting thing, but it's still kind of got a base space thing toward it as well.
Unfortunately, Space Truckers is not out yet, but there is a game called Space Truckers, which is literally space trucking.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, for those of you who are really into the sim side of things, there's a great game being developed by this one guy called Starship Simulator. If you're into like Star Trek stuff, this guy, it's amazing to see what he's done by himself. And it's also something to take a look at if you're into, and he's going to have NPCs on it and stuff, but it's not about going out and doing MMO or anything. It's just for you. But if you're into the whole sci-fi Star Trek thing, check that one out.
It's called Star Trucker, not Space Trucker. But yeah,
Star Trucker.
It's releasing on the 3rd of September. So, but yeah, I mean, X4 is another good one if you like those sorts of things.
Yeah, a lot of people. I've never played it, but good friends of mine swear by it as a great alternative to play. You know.
Well, as I discovered, one of the people who's in the because of the highlight on the weapons team. The first person they interviewed who said he's from Egosoft. Egosoft is the company that makes the X series.
Oh,
and so CIG has a member of the X team
on their team
for making weapons. Cool. So I've always seen it as like as sort of like a Star Citizen hybrid with Elite. So it's got a lot of those sorts of like more like industrial aspects that Star Citizen wants to do, but it has the more sort of narrative crafted and sort of like elite style kind of gameplay.
You're breaking my heart because that's one game that none of us referenced was
Elite Dangerous.
A game that many of us played. No, I'm just saying it's a game that many of us played, but it wasn't one of the first ones that rose to our brain to tell people to go play right now. It's kind of sad.
Space Program 2 broke my heart.
Yeah.
Well, that's another one that we aren't mentioning either,
Yeah,
which is
for
sad.
good
I mean,
reason.
honestly, the only one that I can think of right now that would scratch that exploration itch was probably be Elite. But the thing about Elite is it's also in that situation where there's actually another big update coming out soon.
Right.
But I don't know when that's coming out. So
yeah.
Oh, there's another game I forgot if you're an RPG type gamer.
RTS.
Sins of a Solar Empire is returning.
Oh, nice.
Soon. There's like a brand new Sins of a Solar Empire, and there's something of Mars too that's in the RTS category. It's
I know what you're talking about. It's like terraforming Mars or something like that, you know.
No. It's like a space navy thing.
Oh.
And I forget what it's called. I used to see. It's really complicated looking. It's RTS top down kind of a game, and you have fleets. You have to repair your ship. It even has engineering in it, which is crazy. So get your spreadsheets out, folks. It's similar to Homeworld, I would say, but way more complicated. I can't remember what the name is. Someone probably calls it out.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's not really a ton left that I can think of. Maybe No Man's Sky. It's probably a good one as well. If you're
No Man's Sky's good. Yeah.
Especially for like non-combat, like exploration and building stuff and stuff like that. Space Engineers, Falling Frontier. That's another one I was thinking about.
Space Engineers, Falling Frontier, Space Engineers,
Nebulous Fleet Command is a little bit more combat. It's like that's entirely combat based. I like it, but we're talking about more like fun stuff. All right. Next question. I saw a question from YouTube much earlier that I missed. Okay, Heath Miller. Oh, something before Heath Miller. Bundo asks, what do you think the initial crafting items will be? I think Axis is right. It's going to be weapons and equipment.
Yeah.
That's just easy. It's simple. We actually already have that. It's in the Vulture. You can craft a multi-tool and stuff like that. Like
item crafting, technically, yeah.
So
we can make the multi-tool, the tractor attachment,
and
the mining attachment, I believe.
You can also do the salvage attachment and the salvage attachment, like the fill up module.
Yep.
You can do all of those. So
the canisters, yep.
I fully believe that they intended to throw that in there to see how many people would notice, test it for them, and then, progress the development, which, hey, smart idea. I use it a lot. So
it made sense, especially since they needed it. They needed it there. So, all right. Next question comes from YouTube, who's Dirt Nasty Low, who asks, what are y'all's thoughts about farming? Could one day make it to Star Citizen? Do you think that would be, what do you think that would look like in the world of Star Citizen? I can give you a basic idea because we know the Endeavor has farming modules. So there likely is going to be some sort of dome that you can grow stuff in. But if you have a base on the ground, I don't think you're going to be taking a hoe and like plowing or like a plow and like plow the earth and grow your crops out of the ground. You're likely going to have to build and place greenhouses and biomes. Exactly. And then you're going to have to grow it inside that biome as like a place where you can grow a specific crop. And there might be
have those in there now. They're in there now at the locations at the farm, the harvesting locations. They've already got them there.
Yeah.
Buy your own, grow your own.
Yeah.
And that's just for plant farming too.
Yeah.
For like things like the space cow, which is purposely grown for farming.
Mhm.
which is a lot of people forget that.
Mhm.
It's not only just used for food, but it's also used again crafting, making armor, clothing,
Clothing.
all
Yeah.
kinds of we're starting to see, my point is, I'm keep bringing up, we're starting to see a lot of Lego pieces with multiple studs instead of just one stud, negative stud here, positive stud here. We're seeing a lot of these cross pieces that cross over into other things.
Yeah. Okay.
I think farming is going to be sooner than we think in partiality, not career. With the introduction, probably the quasi grazer technically arrives through free roam cattle. You know all about that in Texas, there, pub. You know, especially when they come across the road.
Don't tell me my father-in-law hit a cow on his way home from work at one point. I don't know what you're talking about. But
Sorry.
Yeah, I think
uh,
the farming, I wouldn't say about your Paul, what you're saying about farming. I
Then
know
we
we've
have
got
fish.
the family farms and things like that already.
yeah.
So like you said, once we get plots, we're able to put down things we can maybe manufacture. We saw a little bit of that too when they started showing us the base building with the hydroponic station that was there. So we see that they've got that, some type of, farming, some form of farming. And farming can be in a lot of other areas too. So I think that it's not that far away, in the sense of dreaming like farming will be years and years down the road. I don't mean it's going to come out next year, but I just think it is something
Yeah.
outside of getting out of hard resources like minerals that obviously doing stuff like that for trade reasons, economic reasons being introduced, it would make sense.
Yeah. I do think though, like I wouldn't be surprised if farming was a post-release feature. Because it's one of
Mhm.
those things where it's like, do we really need farming in base building? We need
Yeah.
probably base building, but we don't really need farming as
Yeah.
part of
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Add-on.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd
It'll
be after that.
it,
Yeah.
it'll be. I wouldn't be surprised if it was the first thing they added on after the release, which is like the farming update and
Mm.
food and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
uh,
Yep.
let's move on to the next question from Logthrin, who asks, "What gameplay or game loop do you think traders will have while cargo is being unloaded, besides manually unloading it themselves?"
Yeah, that's
Check Spectrum. Yeah.
I shared this recently. We did a test a couple weeks ago when this question came up about how long it takes to load and unload. We did a fully laden C2. Guy loaded it up with scrap and iron, right?
Mhm.
But what was interesting is that when he loaded it, the system loaded every type of box there is in the game. So it wasn't like all 32 SCU boxes. We had ones, eights, everything,
Mhm.
right? Four of us, two at the top of the ramp, two at the bottom of the ramp. Took us 19 minutes. And we weren't rushing. It just took 19 minutes to do it.
Was this
19
this
This is
was a
just
Hercules?
offloading. This is just a C2
Yeah.
Hercules. 19 minutes. Now, between the laughing and talking, it happened like that. But when we looked up, we were done. It didn't feel long.
Mhm.
And so the question becomes, how many people are going to be loading C2s all the time? I think that people look at quantity over quality too much when it comes to trading. You could have in this game a freelancer max that has a value equal to a C2 or even greater, depending on what the commodities are when the numbers come out. So a lot of times people are so worried about flying their Caterpillar or their C2 or their Hull C, but I don't think the game is going to be based upon that type of commodity.
Mhm.
So, if you see a Hull C, maybe that Hull C is carrying nothing but scrap. Because that's what that job is. The Hull C owner, that's all they can afford to load up with. It doesn't mean that it's going to be, his fastenite, right? Or
Mhm.
whatever the other that is the biggest thing at the time, Bexelite. So to me, a lot of loading and stuff will be done. There's obviously the NPC aspect. What can we be doing within that time frame? There's a lot of things you could be doing. Everything from making sure that your ship is ready and tuning it and getting it ready to go out. So by the time you get through checking your components and putting that fake laser beam that we all laugh about, your ship is just about loaded. Maybe it's a matter you're just waiting on your friends who are coming to hook up with you, and it's going to take them some time to fly from here to there to meet you. And actually, your ship is loaded, and you're sitting in the bar waiting on them to show up.
Mhm.
I mean, just a lot of things that haven't been introduced into the game that will help pass the time. And then again, we still don't know how long it's going to take to load a ship. We really don't have real numbers yet, you know,
Yeah.
manual versus automated.
Yeah.
And
That's a balance thing too. Like
it is. It is.
But
Yeah.
I also think that people need to come to peace with the idea that there's going to be times where you're just not doing anything. This
Yeah,
isn't
it's
this
okay.
this isn't Gen Z simulator where you have to have the four things on the screen at once for a 50-second clip that you about nothing. Like
Yeah.
it's not overstimulation the game. It was mentioned early on in very early on in Star Citizen's development that one of the things that CIG that Chris was interested in was a kind of a talk or like a study by some of the people who made, I think some of his friends who made the original MMO from Ed Origin. I always forget the name of it.
Ultima?
Ultima Online.
Ultima?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they proposed was that people remember, the thing about MMOs specifically is that people remember MMOs for the times that were not directly related to content.
Exactly.
Like people may not remember a raid boss, but they'll remember the raid boss event because their friends were there and they said something funny or they did something different. Or they'll remember times when they're waiting for friends to show up and someone did something weird or they started talking about it or someone felt better because they were talking with somebody online while they're waiting for some people to show up to a raid and they got, that sort of.
Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah.
Folks remember.
Yeah, those sorts of things. And so the idea it was that Star Citizen was going to build in time where you're just not doing anything because they wanted you to go to the bar, go to a restaurant, go shopping, go interact socially with other people or with the world around you to make you feel more like you're there rather than just be constantly shoveled content in your face.
Yeah. The other thing too, Paul, I think that the gaming industry has made us so worried about in-game and not worried about the game experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to diminish in-game because in-game is a level of how we gauge accomplishment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you can have a day where you accomplish a task and that was your in-game for the day. Maybe the in-game for the day was to load up your whole C, so that tomorrow I'm meeting my friends and we're going to make the journey, right? And then the day after that is when we break down our stuff with the LOE and distribute it someplace else. I think we've gotten so used to doing everything within that time frame. And I know people will say, well, we have jobs and we have families. Guys, I've been gaming for 40 years. Jobs and families didn't show up this year.
Yeah.
I had jobs and families when we were drawing out maps with drafting paper. You didn't finish a game in one session.
No.
What the question was, what did I get done today? You know what I mean? What did I finish within that hour I had or that 6 hours I had? And I know sometimes we want to get to that end thing within that time frame. But I also think that there are some games that just aren't designed to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want this game to be that because I hate to say it. If that's what this game becomes, we'll be playing something else 6 months later. Now, I know there are going to be some people who aren't going to play it. They're just not, it's not their type of gameplay. And that's okay if it's not. I think that CIG has to be responsible enough to balance it as much as possible. But I also think that we've said this before, it's Chris Roberts' game, y'all. I might only like 80% of what Chris Roberts does. I do not expect to like 100% of this game. I don't. I'm braced for that. And I think that we just have to kind of be willing to let them unfold it and let's see where the chips lie when it's all said and done. And maybe it's not so bad. Maybe that 20-minute wait, you find out wasn't a big deal after all. Just like when they introduced food.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we don't want this to be a survival game. Nobody even talks about food anymore.
No.
It doesn't even come up as a discussion. Sometimes we blow stuff out of proportion before we get to see what the heck is going to happen in the game.
I remember people losing their mind because they're like, I'm going to have to stuff a burrito in my face in the middle of combat in order for me to do this. Right. And it's like, as long as you eat before you leave, no one thinks about it. And there might be a situation where you finish a match or you finish a combat and you're like, oh, I am about to die. Does anybody have any food? Like, but so like, I think there are lots of things. And the other things that we haven't mentioned, but I think there's important to mention when it comes to like things you're not to do is there is the lore that's written for Star Citizen. A lot of it is written through what they call Spectrum broadcasts. These aren't actual like lore pieces like in this day, blah, 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 blah. It's they're transcripts from fictional broadcasts on what the internet, the version of internet the Star Citizen has called Spectrum, which is why Spectrum is called Spectrum.
Right.
And it's been mentioned in monthly reports and through the lore makers' questions, responses, that they want to take those shows and turn them into shows in the verse, either through video format. So like a video, kind of think GTA and how GTA has like those little animations or little videos that they'll run if you can watch videos, so you can watch TV. At least GTA 4 had that. I don't remember if 5 did. There's also or like audio format, like a radio like show. So and those should have little snippets about what's happening in the world around you. So you could pull those up and listen to them and watch them while you're waiting for your ship to get loaded, or pop onto a Spectrum to look at like commodity trading and look at other things that are going on. So you hear, oh, there's a pirate raid, like there's a blockade at this station in this system, and you go, oh wait, I know that station always takes this specific commodity. I can go grab that commodity. Now you mentally note I can do that next because I'm only one jump away. I can get there pretty quickly. That sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And like Elite does this pretty frequently too with Galnet. Does some stuff like that. So there will be other things which you don't think of necessarily as gameplay, which is still gameplay. It's just kind of little additions. But it will make you, we'll hit on the one weakness that all Star Citizen players have, which is it'll probably make you read.
Yeah.
And I know you don't read, you who are watching right now.
New Ledge Lambo asked something. He says, but with an already massive time sink that the game is, why add more time sink? And I think New Ledge, I hear you, but for some players, they don't see time sink. It may be time sink feeling for you, maybe for other players. For some people, that time sink, or what they call time sink, is fine. Eating and drinking is unnecessary. Right now, in an alpha, yes. But CIG gives you hints to the fact that eating and drinking will be meaningful later. Most of us know if you get down to 10%, you start having these weird screen effects and stuff. I would hope, New Ledge, that what they'll do is that if you don't eat and drink, your performance starts to fall off. So that it does become meaningful. But if it becomes nothing more than just the screen starts to fade, you're absolutely right. That's just a waste of time. I want eating and drinking to mean something in the game.
Yeah.
But again, we're in alpha stage, and that's just something that's being introduced for testing. It's not the final product. In the final product, you say, well, there won't be much of a player base. Well, that may be true, but guess what? That's fine. There are some games, I hate to tell you this, every game is not supposed to reach out to every person. I know from a business standpoint, that seems like make everybody happy. But there are some games like EVE Online has been around for over 20 years, and it has a very niche audience, and it exists and is still playing today.
Yep.
And there are some science fiction people who play EVE. I've had sci-fi geek friends who go to EVE day one, they do not touch it again. They say, nope, not for me. Star Citizen, hate to tell you this, guys, we are all eligible for that same candidacy. We may say, oh, this ain't for me.
Yeah, that's a constant fear that I've had, is that there's plenty of people who've bought into this game in thousands of dollars because they bought into an idea that they've put up in their head. To a degree, it's CIG's fault for not being specific, and in some cases, it's of course it's the individual for not kind of keying into what like putting too much into dreams rather than reality, but who'll come to the point and be like, oh, this is not the game I backed. It's like, well, what do you think? But let's see. I was trying to say something else. But the other thing to keep in mind is that, like, I was gonna say, use another example. Yeah. The original Helldivers 1 was still getting like 10 to 15,000 active players. I want to say it was in the thousands. It may have not been that much, even up to Helldivers 2. It was released in like 2015, and it was getting daily runs from a small dedicated community all the way up to right before Helldivers 2 released. And it was nothing like Helldivers 2. So yeah. All right. Next question comes from Coffee Gaming, who asks, are there any new types of mission givers that you would like to see? New types? Salvage, maybe? Bounty hunting? All of them?
Yeah, I was going to say. I wish that the guy, like, this is another example of when we talk about CIG doing something and not following through. The guy in Wally's, who's supposed to be the insider, behind the bar, just kick that back in. You know, just that guy, if you ask for the right drink or if you have the right reputation, he tells you something, you know? Yeah, I would love to see any of that type of stuff. Just any of the NPC related things kick in. Maybe that guy who gives you coffee freaking at our corp area 18, he tells you something. I don't know. I'd love to hear conversations going on that drop hints of something.
You're barking up the tree that I've been barking up for a long time. Like just some character. Some character. Oh yeah, Rust Society. I like the Rust Society.
They exist in lore.
Yeah.
Their armor is in the subscriber store. And I'm like, you know what would be really cool now that we have salvage and reputation here? Come here, Jim. See. Copying Paul.
Paul, come here. Come close. Come close. I like Jordan, so that's why I do that.
Together, remove that armor from the subscriber store. You take commissions for the Rust Society representative wherever they are, probably Hurston, I would assume, or ArtCorp, one of the two, and you earn new versions of that armor that you can't even get in the subscriber store. Exclusive stuff. They're starting to do that with these missions. I'm noticing more, instead of just money, gear, and reputation. I'm okay with that. That's a wonderful chain. That brings much needed shot in the arm to reputation giving stuff.
I mean, yeah, I think I don't think you need to remove the stuff. You just add new armor. That's cool for that. But I agree.
Yeah. Sorry, I may be removing it's too harsh, but definitely some newer versions of it.
Yeah.
Well, we need the reputation and guild stuff, right? I mean, we've got it for the combatant related, the mercenary type things, but why not have it for salvage? Why not have it for mining? Like you said, Axis have the location where you go to the mission giver. Don't get me wrong, the Moby class is convenient, but I have no problem if I know that the mining guild is on Hurston and that's where I go to check in for stuff. That's the TDD activates. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's in there already. Just make them a part of our daily gameplay in some form.
Exactly. And they're based in cities, so that gives you a reason to bring people back into cities. You have the medical guild. Well, no, it would be more the how would you term a medical guild though? That's an interesting.
I'm sure there's something like that.
Freelance medical. There we go. Freelance. A reference to freelancer. Can't beat it.
I'm sure there's some sort of medical or like Doctors Without Borders sort of situation. But yeah, no, like you bringing up Rust Society. I've always been a big proponent that CIGs needs two types of like tutorials. They need the tutorial of how do you function as a human being in Star Citizen. Press W to go forward, you know, Q and E to lean, that kind of stuff. And it also needs like game tutorials, but more built in the same way of like gameplay. Like, oh, this is the gameplay. This is bounty hunting. This is, you know, salvage. This is mining. This is. And so I've always been a big proponent of taking some of those in-game organizations and having those organizations be your tutorial missions for your first round. So you can choose to go and hang out with them. If you're like, oh, I want to do some mining. It's like, oh, okay, cool. We'll go to United Workers Resource Union, or United Workers Resource Union, I think is what it's called. A UWRU.
That's going to be involved with materials.
Yeah, with like materials, or if you want to do salvage or trading, you go to the Rust Society, or if you want to do bounty hunting, you go to the Bounty Hunting Guild, and you have like a small little intro location where people can learn the ropes in a safer location with a kind of on script, on rails sort of hey, this is what you can do, and that sort of stuff. So it gives the players a little bit more of a boom, and then take the current system that they're using for the guide system and attach it to each of those guilds. So like they go through their initial like little boop, and then they, if you're in Rust Society, then you have a situation where if you're a certain reputation, the Rust Society says this is a new initiate who just went through their first introduction. Would you like to take them on for a mission or two? We'll pay you, 20,000 credits or whatever for you to have them on your crew for this many hours. And then you just, so that way you have the actual like guide thing, but it's in game with in-game reputation and money. You get a little bit of a boost for being that, and it encourages players who are interested in those sorts of things to gather more people, and you get yourself a free crew member on your ship for a little bit.
Sure.
I've also said there should be criminal reputation builders too. I've almost thought of a illegal. So what would be the opposite of a legal society for salvage? Like the Deadbolts or something. The Deadbolt Society or something like that.
Yeah.
Some sort of criminal version of, the like flip of the coin kind of stuff with mission givers. People have been saying it for a long time. And obviously you have field medics. Well, you also have pirate medics. So there's going to be all kinds of things they're going to have to take it up with. Other mission givers that are neutral, that may be involved in more than just human space, would be museums and libraries. We were talking about this before we got on, Paul. The Xi'an, you might become an ambassador between empires and be able to travel freely. Things like that might be opened, where a patrol from the Xi'an borderlands scans you, sees you have rare animals, and then realize, oh wait, he's not a poacher. He's a transporter to a zoo on Sol. So let him pass.
That sounds more like we're kind of getting off the mark there, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interconnected stuff. They're not even touching the surface yet.
Oh yeah, there's a lot, and I think it's because the reputation system isn't it's in, but it's so basic. So,
oh my god, it's like microbial based. It's so bad.
Jake of No Trades says, "What split do you think combat non-combat player base will be? I have a feeling it will be 60-40-ish for combat, 60% combat. CIG has to have the statistics in the background, and
they have.
And I can tell you this." That there was a Twitter poll that someone put up to try to say be like, oh yeah, no, how many of you are PvP versus PvEers? And only 7-8% of people who responded were admitted to being a PvPer. And a developer responded to it as that's too high. That's not even with our internal calculations. That's higher than our internal data of who actually participates in PvP. So if the PvP combat community is 4% of the community, but is one of the loudest communities out there, I would be inclined to believe that probably the vast majority of players who play Star Citizen are non-combat players rather than combat players. Me, for example, I want to do smuggling as a gameplay loop. Does that mean I don't go out and fight? No, I go out and fight all the time. I love doing Xenothreat and the Siege of Orison and stuff like that. I don't mind doing combat missions at all, but it's not my main focus.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification too. I don't want people to think that it means people don't want to fight. We're saying we don't come to the game exclusively for fighting. We're not being so naive to think that we're not going to have combat in the game. It's just that's not what we're coming to the game for. And there are some people who come because they love the combat aspect of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? What do y'all think that the breakdown will be?
You're better than me. I was go ahead, Axis.
I'm hoping 55-45, something close to the middle, but some dichotomy split. But Like you said, I think some of it's being driven by all the combat ships,
Yeah,
really.
just because it's there, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's like right in your face. And then we also have so few routes to make money other than combat. I mean, we have mining and salvage, that's it. We don't have exploration. Medical is very basic. Um,
Mhm.
Cargo, we only have one solar system at the moment. And what else am I forgetting?
Someone was saying that I was connecting PvP directly to combat versus whereas a lot of it'll be PvE. No, I agree. There will be a lot of PvE combat, but I still don't think it's the majority. I think it just happens the fact that, you know, if you're a starving man on an island and they hand you a grape and you're not a big fan of grapes, you're going to eat the fucking grape. And you know, just because you eat a grape doesn't mean all you want to eat is grapes.
Yeah,
So. What
Yeah,
were
my percentage is going to be a little bit more optimistic, and that's because I'm an old person who's from Star Trek, where we've gotten past and beyond ourselves. So I'm going to be, I'm going to lean more into, and let me say this too. I think much of the combat and stuff that happens between us happens because that's all we have.
Mhm.
I think that once we introduce other elements, such as the like in Pyro, for example, you've got the gangs, so there's PvE. There is the alien aspect of the Vandul that will come up later on in the game. I think that once there are other common enemies, we may find ourselves more combat in those directions, and it diminish a little bit against each other. Now, there's always going to be orgs and things for resources and combatants, you know, fighting for that level. But I'm kind of thinking that it'll be more like, I'm not going to say 25-75. I'm going to say more like a 35-65, something like that. I'm not going to go to 40-60, but I'm being a little more optimistic toward
Hey,
our
Paul,
better side of our human nature, but we'll see what happens.
I will be right back.
Go for it.
I don't go anywhere, guys. I got to get my delivery. It's literally
Sure.
right
Go
here.
for it.
Mm-hmm.
Be right back.
All right. We only got a couple of questions left. One of them is from Ruland the Dwarf, who asks, what do you think will be next non-combat gameplay they will add? Actually, we already know that. It's engineering.
It's engineering is going to be after. But what's after that? I don't know.
After that, scanning. I mean, scanning's sort of part of combat, but that's something they're definitely adding in.
Yeah, I mean, they're moving into this whole. At least they seem like they're trying to move into this thing where roles are starting to be distinguished more on ships. I would love for them to. I like the idea of things stepping away from the pilot doing everything. I know that when the Polaris issue came up, some people's hearts were broken when they found out that the person flying the ship is not going to be firing torpedoes.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that roles start to expand and permissions that give people things to do on a ship, responsibilities more.
Mhm.
And that could be in a combatant,
Sorry, I'm
non-combatant
back.
area. But for
You're good.
me, scanning, I think is something I would love to see, that there are people out there who, when you go somewhere, you're scanning, whether it's for combatant reasons or resource reasons or whatever. I want to see more cross communication between people on a ship, and you know, telling a pilot, this is the heading you need to take, this is where you need to go,
Yeah.
or a pilot requesting information from someone else.
Like
I'd love
navigation.
to see more of that, navigation, things like that. Yeah.
The question was, what do you think is the next non-combat gameplay they'll add? And we've already mentioned engineering and scanning access. Anything else you think that might be there? I will also respond because someone said engineering is combat. It is, but but the thing about it being combat is that an engineer doesn't have to shoot anything. They just have to shoot the components with healing laser beams. Like they're not actively pulling out a gun. It's not like
healing beam.
Yes. It's not like engineering. It's like taking the component out of the ship and then like hurling at your enemy. You know, it's very non-shooty professions. That's when we say it's non-combat.
Right. What I'm thinking they could do is some level of exploration.
Okay.
Some level. I mean, it's related to scanning, obviously, and stuff. I mean, they're working on a lot of POIs, right? Points of entrance and stuff that they could scatter even across standard systems. And scanning's related to exploration, even at the ground truth level, not ship level.
Mhm.
with helmets, getting their own HUDs, with radar and stuff. That's going to be very interesting how they do that.
I've said for a while, like what all they have to do once they have scanning in to get exploration gameplay in is just scan a region of area, return with updated maps. Because as another person who's raised on Star Trek, Griff, you could probably back me up on this one. Almost all of the episodes of Star Trek, before all of the fun stuff happens, they're either delivering medical supplies to some colony, or returning from a medical mission to a colony, or updating maps, scanning a new region of space, or mostly just updating maps of old regions of space that haven't been updated. Those are like the four things that they're always doing at the very beginning of every episode. Rarely is it like we're going into combat. It's like,
well, people forget that the Enterprise was supposed to be about exploration. That's what it was. They just had these the combat were encounters, but their purpose was to do exploration. Right?
But I mean, but even the exploration aspect is built, like all the interesting encounters are built off of, they're doing a mapping mission of a region of space that hasn't been updated in a while. And that's it.
Right.
And I think that's what the main exploration gameplay is going to be. So once scanning comes in, basic exploration gameplay is go to this planet, scan this region, this part of the planet, return so we can update our maps. Yeah. And you've got exploration gameplay, and we pay you to do that. So
get paid for that. Yeah.
Sorry about the disturbance, boys.
You're good. Shimpasta asks, it's clear that PvP will have to do non-PvP gameplay loops. Do y'all think players will drop out of Star Citizen once it becomes harder just to hop into a ship and PvP? Yes and no. Because there's another thing that's crucial that it continues to get improved and updated, and that is Arena Commander.
Yeah.
I think Arena Commander will become the drop-in, drop-out PvP. And I also think CIG will be smart enough to do areas like Tarkov. They've already mentioned derelict stations, and the way they described derelict stations for like Pyro sounded like it's Tarkov. Anybody who's not done Tarkov or an extraction shooter, most extraction shooters or a lot of extraction shooters have some ambient threat like scavs or zombies or something like that that's NPCs. And then there are players who are also initial threat. So having like a station which has rare loot in it or some rare item you can get, but you have to go through the station, navigate it, find the location, and then extract with it, while there's some like people who live on the derelict station who are crazy and trying to kill you, or other players who might be going after the same thing. Like PvP isn't always just about actively shooting things. Sometimes it's the threat of being in an area where someone could shoot you. Knowing that there's that.
Okay, so I've got a philosophical question here. Hopefully this won't drag your stream on forever.
It's fine.
Okay. Let me give you the scenario. Arena Commander is fully fleshed out. It is available for people to go PvP. The persistent universe is fleshed out. And it is available for people to PvP. With the situation where there's the risk of loss.
Yeah.
Where Arena Commander removes that. Will people, now mind you, I've had all these different Arena Commander. I've always felt that the pods that we have, those will get incorporated into the game. And when people are looking for something to do when they're on their ship, they can get in those pods and train. They can do combat, blah, 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 blah. But my question becomes, what makes people decide to leave the persistent universe to go into Arena Commander to fight when they could stay in the persistent universe and fight somebody and get the satisfaction of, as many people have told me, it's fun just to blow up people. Has nothing to do with anything other than the excitement of blowing someone up, where they might feel that Arena Commander is a simulation of loss. The persistent universe is real loss, which raises the stakes for some people.
Right.
How do you drive people to go to a simulated loss versus a real loss?
Practice.
Cost.
And cost. Practice and cost.
Cost.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's some folks, the cost don't mean squat to them.
No. But we're also also talking about, as some people have been saying, time citizen, time wasting citizen. Like we have to remember where there's going to be
a guy who told me the other day he had no problem. Check this out. He had no problem buying an account every time if he had to do something just so he could go into PvP. And I talked about reputation time, blah, blah, blah. He said, I'll just discontinue that account and start another one.
That's
And
fine.
I know that might be the one-off, right? That's what I said. That's fine, you know. But I'm just saying, I'm just curious whether people will take advantage of the here's the way you can have your PvP and not lose anything, versus the people who that is meaningless to them. They will stay in the lost side of it. I don't know.
I mean, I know
don't know.
people who PvP, who are fans of my lore content, which always surprises me. It's like, you like the lore content? It's like, yeah. It's like, but you're mainly a PvP. I'm like, I love the lore content. It's like,
Right.
great. Okay. Thank you for watching. But and they practice in Arena Commander all the time. Like, 'cause it's for them, it's like a lot of it is just muscle memory. Learn how your ship works. They're practicing with your different controls, because if you've got a new setup or you get new controls, you got to learn it, and then practicing with other people so you know how they fight, and working on like techniques, so that because you'd rather that person practicing in a place where there's little to no cost for it, rather than jumping in the PU and learning in the PU where one mistake can be minutes and in the future possibly hours of loss before you get anything back. So, you know, so that's what I think. But you know, I don't think that PvPers will drop, though I do think some of them will when they realize it's not all on PvP. But most of the people I know who are really into PvP are like Tarkov players, and I can tell you, as playing Tarkov and other sorts of games, a lot of what Tarkov is just walking.
Yeah.
You ain't shooting a lot in Tarkov. You are walking, and the reason why it's fun is because it's so tense. Because any time someone could walk around the corner and blast you in the face. So, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay.
All right. Last three questions. This next one is from Coke Cowboy, who asks, do you think they'll wipe ships bought with AUEC in the coming 3.24 update? I don't think they said they would.
They just said, in fact, on the SCL yesterday, Disco made a comment about they're doing their best now not to do wipes anytime unless they really need to. And he made an actual stop and comment about that. So
yeah,
unless there's a situation, and I'm actually surprised considering the issue they had with the exploits. You know, I guess maybe because they're getting ready to implement this new level of economy, it's just not worth it to do it right now. But when they're ready to do something with these numbers for real, then you can expect that wipe to come. Ships, though, they said they'll try not to do it, you know, but we'll see.
I agree. I think 4.0 is where we're going to see a big wipe, because it's like a big change.
It's a reset for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Let's start at how MMO plays, cross survival gameplay, and then end up at Tarkov, and that's the spectrum. What I was trying to say before is that I don't know many PvP players who are like PvP players who are veterans of, say, WoW, who are coming to Star Citizen to PvP. Or I don't see a lot of people being like, I've heard about this Star Citizen game, so I stopped playing Call of Duty Warzone and decided to hop on to Star Citizen. You don't see a lot of those folks. Most of the people you're seeing are coming from games like Arma or Squad or specifically Tarkov. There's a lot of Tarkov crossover.
Yeah.
And so those people are used to waiting, a lot of standing around and waiting. So hopefully that clears it up there for you, Balakina. Next question, I think, is Admiral Kusanagi asks, what percentage of current Star Citizen players will drop Star Citizen when it's closer to a finish date? 5%, 20%, what? I couldn't tell you. There's not a human being on the planet who could tell you accurately what's going to happen, because none of us know, what this finished closer date is, except for Chris Roberts, I'm sure, has a date, but Chris Roberts and dates are like dogs and cats. They don't get along too often.
It's hard to say, because even though there may be a loss, there's just as much that there could be a gain. People who thought that they wouldn't be interested in Star Citizen all of a sudden embrace it, right? And then you've got the people who the game doesn't satisfy what they need and they leave. They're going to be short-term people who play it for a period of time. And then there are those people who are committed to just, I'm planning on being here the next 10 years. I think it's just it's a volatile number. I don't know if you can say what it will be.
And there will
There's
be
some people who are waiting. There's a lot of people who are just waiting. They haven't touched the game. They're literally waiting to see what this game is going to be.
Those were smart people. Those are the smart people who bought this game for $20 in 2012 and just kind of sit in the sidelines eating popcorn while watching everyone else lose their mind. Those are the smartest people out of our entire community. They'll show up on day one, and all of us rest will be like, "We've got all this inherent knowledge," and they'll be like,
"Gray hair."
Yeah, and they'll be like, "We're cool. I bought this game, 20 years ago. I'm good to go now." What I was also going to say. Oh, yeah, and there will also be people who play the game now who drop the game because they don't like it, like the changes, and then when the game gets more advanced, they pick it back up.
They come back,
because they like some of the changes and stuff like that. So,
yep. And we've seen that with people who recently came back, like they've been gone since like 2015, 16, and now they're playing it. I've got a buddy right now who stopped in 2014. He got back in 3 months ago and he's loving it to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you say?
I mean, 2014 was basically Arena Commander.
Yeah, all we had was Port Olisar and Cry Astro when he left. I put it to you that way.
Are you talking about time?
Yeah, kind of weird.
He's just saying, I'm sure Star Citizen CIG will not want their game ruined by botters and cheaters. Only way is to government-issued ID online or ID check like ID.me. CIG will, if you are a cheater, they will watch you until they think it's the right time. Then they will shut down your account and everything else around your account. And then when you buy a new account to keep doing it, they'll happily take your credit card information. And let you buy it again and then chase you down again, because it's just there's enough people who've tried to make cheats for Star Citizen that have failed and gotten caught multiple times.
Yep.
So,
and not to mention, those are the ones we hear about.
Yeah.
Trust me, there are so many that you don't hear about.
Yeah. Yeah, the Valve does it frequently, where they just kind of wait for an opportunity and then just pop it out. They can track them time. They'll track them. They're not invincible. It's just a matter of, it's an attrition that they will never ever fully kind of deal with that. And there's no way CIG is going to require players to show their government issued ID. I had a security measure because of Pride Month on this channel, which required you to verify a phone number with Twitch in order to chat. I got so many people who switched over to my YouTube to watch it on YouTube rather than Twitch, because this is something that Twitch required me to do for being part of their kind of, with Pride program.
Right.
And they were just like, I'm not giving Twitch my freaking phone ID. Like, they wouldn't be willing to give Twitch their phone number. How many people would be willing to give CIG their government issued ID? I wouldn't do that. Unless CIG is paying me a salary, I ain't giving them my government issued ID. So, no, I'm not saying these are getting around time. I'm saying you're making a mountain out of a molehill. That's what it is. All right. Last question. Toha X2 asks, do you think 3.24 will lead to a market of box movers who hang out at locations and sell their services as assistant box loaders, or do you think that'll come in the future? Axis, what do you think?
I think it'll lead to a lot of things like that. Yeah. They already exist. There's already groups that are beginning to exist that, exclusively do cargo, salvage, whatever. I mean, it's like, are we new at this? I'm not trying to be cynical to the question asked. It's just the way this sandbox game is, I wouldn't be too surprised if there's already some orgs heavily planned around industrial.
For sure.
It's been around, what's a big one that comes to mind? The one that did the commodities table years ago.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, people have been saying like the longshoremen, you know? Yeah, I agree. I think there'll definitely be people who do that. But I think CIG will have to support it a little bit because like, you know, it's a more of matter of like, how does it get done? But yeah. Yeah. Griffin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are groups that will be willing to do that. If not groups, even individuals. I think that there are obviously things that have to be built in, security measures and things like that. And what I mean, you know, simple things like reputation. Can I trust this person? But it also lends stuff to the other side. You know, maybe that guy who you hire or that hire also is partnered with a piracy group that says Paul C2 just departed. Looks like he's leaving in the next 5 minutes, right? And so they're out there waiting on Paul. So I don't know. I think that they'll have. There are some players who I think honestly are looking or hoping that there'll be gameplay for them. Job boards, for example, going to the TDD and stating that my services are available, you know, to be able to help load your ship. And they're played. That's what they want to do. They just want to do that type of gameplay. They went out there and bought that little tracker thing. What is it called? The what's the little Argo thing with the tracker?
Argo MPUVT.
Yeah, the T. You know, stuff like that. They'll be happy to do that type of stuff because that's what they want to do, and they may not ever leave that orbital station. That's their gameplay, and they make money. You know, I see. I've heard people say that's what they want to do. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. I think that was the last question. I don't think there's any other ones on the YouTube. There's a good question. How much of this non-combat episode was spent on combat? Surprisingly, though, it seems like a lot. We've streamed for a little over 2 hours. And of the 2 hours, we spent about, probably more like an hour and a half to talk about directly non-combat stuff. But yeah. Thank you so much for Griffin for coming on. Griffin came in and like last minute I asked, like, hey, we got nobody. And Griffin was like, I haven't come on in a while. So thank you for coming on, Griffin. Make sure to check him out again. Soul Citizens, YouTube and Twitch, Axis as well. Always whenever it's where I'm having trouble to come on, it's Axis. It's like Axis or HD Vertigo is like, I'm good. Hi. So make sure you check out Axis at twitch.tv/Axis0096 and same on YouTube. I think it's just different capitalizations, but you could be able to just find it with the name on there.
Yeah.
We gotta talk to you about a branding. We gotta rename you so we can get a consistent branding. Keep that Gundam theme, but keep it consistent branding. Yeah.
I wish. I tried to say that on Kick. They wouldn't let me. It's weird.
Yeah, thank you for watching. And if you enjoyed this, we do this live at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive on Saturdays at 5 p.m. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. I always screw that one up. 4 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's like, I guess it's like 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, something like that.
5 hours. Yeah.
So thank you all for watching. And yeah, like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.